Screw what Punxsutawney Phil had to say last week. Winter is over because baseball season is here. As of today, Pirates Spring Training has officially begun with pitchers and catchers reporting. Now, there have been players that have been down there probably for over a week now, but there are official baseball activities happening in Bradenton right now, which means baseball season is back. And we're just 6 weeks away from opening day in New York. Now, there's a lot that has to happen between now and then. There's plenty of questions that need to be answered. There's plenty of storylines to follow along during Pirate Spring Training. And we're going to get into the top 5 on today's video. And at number 5, to kick things off, it's something that I think a lot of baseball fans, especially casual baseball fans, they kind of tune out during the football season, then tune back in as soon as it ends. The World Baseball Classic is less than a month away. And for a while it was, okay, well, Paul Skenes is going to play for Team USA, and that's going to be it. Maybe O'Neal Cruz. Well, it turns out there are 8 Pirates participating in the WBC this year. Paul Skenes for Team USA, and he is obviously the most prominent. But Kyle Nicholas will be lacing him up for Team Italy. Pirates prospect Antoine Kelly will be pitching for the Netherlands. Spencer Horwitz will be reprising his role on Team Israel. Nick Gonzales will be playing for Team Mexico, and 3 Pirates, O'Neal Cruz, Dennis Santana, and a newcomer, Gregory Soto, will all be playing for Team Dominican Republic. The tournament begins on March 5th. It runs through the 17th. And why is this still vital for Pirates Spring Training? Not only because there are 8 Pirates participating, and it'll be fun to watch Paul Skenes play for Team USA and ditto for the other 7 in their countries, but it's going to open up opportunities back at Pirates Spring Training for other players to get more at-bats, to get more reps, to get more opportunities in front of the Pirates coaching staff and their front office. More opportunities for them to potentially move up the proverbial depth chart within the organization. So it's not just keeping an eye on what's happening with the 8 players going to the WBC, but keeping an eye on the players that are staying and getting ready for the 2026 season, and who takes advantage of that increased opportunity during the spring. The one thing that's a little interesting to me, and we'll talk about this player a little bit later, is Nick Gonzales. Now, this could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so at the end of the day, I understand it, but Nick Gonzales' spot in this lineup is not, as of right now, and as of the outside looking in, is not solidified in any way. They traded for Brandon Lau. He's going to be the starting second baseman. What does that mean for Nick Gonzales? Is he battling to stay in the middle infield at shortstop? Is he moving all the way over to the corner on third base? There's a lot of questions with Nick Gonzales, but at the end of the day, and ultimately, it makes sense. This might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to play for Team Mexico at the WBC, so kudos to Nick Gonzales for taking the opportunity, and excited to see what he's able to do in the WBC. But something else I'm keeping an eye on. At number 4, and most of the rest of these are position battles because there's a lot of them going into spring training. Left field is at number 4, the left field battle. I would say the leader in the clubhouse for that position right now is Jake Mangum. This is a guy who has speed, steals bases, is a high batting average guy. He had his first full season in the MLB. He had his first season in the MLB last year, and he dang near hit 300 during that time. So he gets on base, he can steal bases, and he's really good in the field. And if you look at the Pirates, some of these offensive additions have come at the expense of defense. Jake Mangum brings that defense, especially in a very spacious left field at PNC Park. So I would say he's the leader in the clubhouse, but I wouldn't say that you can put him in pen as the everyday left fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Jack Sawinski is going to be involved in this, and Jack Sawinski loves spring training. He's always at his best in spring training, which is not always a good thing, but hey, it sets him up for success at the beginning of the season. The thing with Sawinski this year, to me, is I think the Pirates are less desperate for power on the left side. You bring in Ryan O'Hearn. You bring in Brandon Lau. You're expecting O'Neal Cruz to rebound this year. You're a little bit less desperate to have a power bat and an impact bat on the left side. And when Jack Sawinski is firing on all cylinders, that's what he does. That's what he is. He's a 20-plus home run guy. That's not a mirage. That happened. We saw it. We haven't seen it in a while, though. And that's why I think he's going to have to earn his opportunity a little bit more so this year than in previous years. But he is going to be involved in the left field battle. And once again, a player who gives you plus defense in the outfield. Then there's Yostinson Garcia. They acquired him in exchange for Johan Oviedo. That is no small detail when it comes to this position battle. But the thing is with Yostinson Garcia, you're going to want him playing. You're not going to want him to be up and the fourth outfielder that barely gets a sniff. So I wouldn't mind if he started in AAA, and that's, as of right now, where I would imagine he is going into training camp. But I wouldn't put it past him being able to have a great spring and impressing the Pirates so much that he forces his way onto the roster. I think that is a stark possibility. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen. But like I said, I would still put Jake Mangum as the leader in the clubhouse, but Garcia is a player that is very intriguing, especially because you gave away a pretty good starting pitcher in order to bring him back, right? They gave up Mike Burrows, but what they got back was Brandon Lau, who is guaranteed to be a good player, at the very least guaranteed to be an everyday player. But you also brought back Mason Montgomery, and you brought back Jake Mangum. In that trade for Yostinson Garcia, he is the piece. He is the password, but he is the piece in that one. So there's a little bit more pressure coming into the season on him to live up to the expectations of the trade, at least in the eyes of the fan base, is what it seems. So it's going to be very interesting. And like I said on yesterday's video, Marcell Ozuna signing muddies the waters a little bit, because now Ryan O'Hearn might wind up playing a lot more outfield than we initially expected. At number 3, it's the 5th starter position. The starting rotation is expected to be very good in 2026. But as of right now, I can only put 4 pieces on the chessboard and only wonder what's going to be the 5th. Paul Skenes, Mitch Keller, I think those 2 are locks. Bubba Chandler is 95% a lock. 5% a little bit shaky just because you never know. Braxton Ashcraft is in a similar boat. I'd say 90% a lock to be in the starting rotation, 10% that he gets replaced by somebody else. But there is just a handful of players that could be that 5th starter to start the season. Jose Urquidy is the one that I think a lot of people are looking at, simply because he just got signed a week ago. Signs to a 1-year deal. Returning from Tommy John, he was able to get a couple of games under his belt, really just 2 innings under his belt at the MLB level last year. But if you look at what he was able to do from 2021 to 2022, in both of those seasons, he had 20-plus starts and a sub-4 ERA. If the Pirates can get that version of Jose Urquidy, then they'll be very happy with their 5th starter in 2026. And let's not forget, where was he at when he was doing that? Houston. You know who else was in Houston? The Pirates' new pitching coach, Bill Murphy, and the Pirates' new assistant pitching coach in Thomas Whitsett. So you have some familiarity with him. So that's why that's the name that kind of goes to the top of the list. I wouldn't put him in pen. I wouldn't even put him in very dark pencil. But that's the name that catches my attention. Carmen Mlodzinski's another one. He has been in these battles before, and he has won these battles before to be the Pirates' 5th starter. So I could see this being something similar to last season, that if nobody else steps up, all right, Carmen Mlodzinski gets that first opportunity. And then once somebody, last year it was Mike Burrows, but once somebody, maybe it's Hunter Barco, maybe it's Thomas Harrington, maybe it's acquiring another arm, whether that be a lefty or another righty, I could see Carmen Mlodzinski holding that spot down and then eventually shifting back into the bullpen, similar to what he did last season. But there's just a lot of names. I mentioned Harrington. I mentioned Barco. I mean, there's, of the 8 pitchers that I've mentioned so far, discounting Jared Jones because he's not going to be ready for the beginning of the season, there's only one lefty, and it's a young lefty in Hunter Barco. So I'm wondering if there isn't another name out there that the Pirates have circled that they want that to be that fifth starter coming from the southpaw side on their mound. So that's the number 3. At number 2, left infield. Left infield are the biggest holes because we really don't know what the Pirates' plan is. Now, this might be something that's answered by the end of this week. Who knows? But at third base, they were supposedly and reportedly in on Eugenio Suarez. There was a lot of connections to Yoan Moncada. Both of those players are gone. Now, the rumors are that it's going to be via a trade that they fill that gap. Houston's Isaac Paredes, the New York Mets' Mark Vientos. So are they going to, at the end of the day, bring someone in from the outside to fill that role at third base? Or are they going to go with one of the current options? Jared Triolo, who gives you Gold Glove caliber defense. And also, if he's able to replicate what he was able to do in August and September, he's pretty good at the plate too. We've seen it. Again, it's similar to Sawinski, but we've seen it more with Jared Triolo and more recently with Jared Triolo. If you look back at what he was able to do when he was the guy at third base last year after the trade of Bryan Hayes, 276 batting average and a 775 OPS. And I know what baseball truthers are going to say. That's just not enough power at that position. But look at the power that they added throughout the rest of the diamond. Look at the power they're getting from a second baseman in Brandon Lau. Look at the extra power that they're getting at DH that they weren't able to get last year. That allows you to go with a little bit less power and more contact at third base, in my opinion. And that's why I wouldn't hate if Jared Triolo, at the very least, started the season as your third baseman. But then there's also that hole at shortstop. Triolo could fill that if they end up getting Vientos or Paredes, but so too could Nick Gonzales. You know, he was top 5 in most offensive categories for the Pirates last year. And I know it's not a tremendous feat when you consider what the Pirates were offensively, but that is with no lineup protection, and that is with him missing a large portion of the early season due to an injury that he had to make his way back from. I still think that there is a lot of potential in Nick Gonzales, and that's why going to the WBC, it is something that is going to throw a little bit of a wrench into the Pirates spring training, because there's already questions about what they do with Nick Gonzales. With him leaving for potentially 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks, that's going to make things even more interesting. But when you look at the left side of the infield, you can't have any conversation without talking about the number one storyline going into Pirates spring training, and that's Konnor Griffin. He plays into this battle. He plays into these questions as well, because he's the top prospect in baseball and somebody that it is a when and not if he makes his debut in 2026. There are some that believe, hey, he is ready. Just give him the opportunity. As long as he doesn't have a horrible spring, he should be your starting shortstop, because he's great offensively, as he showed last year, but he was also really good defensively last year as well. But with the offense added, I don't think you have to do this. A lot of people at the beginning of this offseason were saying you need to add 2 to 3 bats. And for a while this offseason, a lot of people said, well, Konnor Griffin can be one of those 3. If you add Konnor Griffin and he's able to play at the level that he did in those lower levels of the minors last year and translate that to Major League Baseball, then that is a de facto offseason addition. But the fact that you were able to add Brandon Lau, Ryan O'Hearn, now Marcell Ozuna, I will throw Jake Mangum into that because I think he's going to be very good for the Pirates offense in 2026. With all that added, plus Konnor Griffin still being 19 years old, I wouldn't mind it if he started in AAA. I wouldn't mind it if he got that opportunity to face a higher level of pitching that he's ever faced before without it being MLB pitching under an MLB spotlight. But if he tears it up this spring, I wouldn't hold him back at the same time. I mean, the lineup protection is there. It's the same thing we've said for O'Neal Cruz. It's the same thing we've said for Bryan Reynolds. It's the same thing we've said for everybody that struggled last year on the Pirates, but there's still belief that they are better than what they showed. You could put them at 7th or 8th in the lineup. and allow him to not have the pressure of being a heart of the lineup guy at 19 years old. But I don't think it is, I wouldn't say necessary, because necessary is just an opinion that I really don't have at this point. But it is not 1000% needed for the Pirates to start this season. I wouldn't mind it if he got a little seasoning in AAA. But again, it's the biggest storyline going into camp because he tore it up last year in Major League camp at 18 years old. He basically was unstoppable through 3 levels of minor league baseball last year. And it already looked by the end of the season like he was too good for AA as well. So if he has another spring like that, could he make his MLB debut on March 26th? It's possible. It is possible. I don't think that people should be up in arms if he doesn't, but I do think that it is a possibility, and it's going to be something that everybody has their eyes on throughout spring training this year. But that's going to do it for this one. The top 5 storylines heading into Pirate Spring Training. We got the WBC, we got the battle for left field, we got the battle for the 5th starter in the rotation, the left infield questions, which is going to be huge, and of course, what does Konnor Griffin do? What does the number 1 prospect in baseball do over the next 6 weeks, and where does he start? I would be surprised if it was AA, but hey, again, who knows what's going to happen over the next 6 weeks with the top prospect in all of baseball. But that's going to do it for this video. Baseball's back, people. Let's get excited and let's keep warming up the weather in Western Pennsylvania. But that's it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.